It's happening.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm sorry that we're a minute late here. We had some technical difficulties. We'll get started in the next minute or so, so we don't punish the people that have joined us on time. We were just making sure our lighting and our sound was good, so hopefully it is.
Good enough.
Exactly. Good enough.
Good enough. This is an objection handling series, not a. This could be on radio, you know.
It's not beauty or how to.
I hope not.
No, not how
not
to put
today.
on. No, I was going to give the first.
It's not a bronzer tutorial.
I was about. So funny you said that. I literally was about to say, because we talk about, is it pressed powder or bronzer, or are they the same thing?
They're not the same thing.
Carson's like, how do I even know about that? When you're this pale, you know about bronzer. Anyway.
And
really
pressed powder?
Yes. Wow. As hopefully everyone can see today, this is going to be a fun session, but most importantly, our goal is for you to walk away in the next 50 to 60 minutes with some real value. I have so many notes here. We're going to do our best to get it all into this session. I really want to thank Carson and Ashlie for joining me today. Besides being great humans, they are amazing at what they do, and they're amazing at managing the process, managing their clients' expectations. So I'm very confident that every person signing in today, whether you're new or a multi-million-dollar producer, is going to get tremendous, tremendous value from this session. So with no further ado, let's just do like 20-second introductions. Ashlie, who are you?
Hi, I'm Ashlie Roberson. I'm a founding member of the Whitman team and the team lead for Whitman Team Brooklyn. I've been at Triple Mint for almost 6 years, and I reside in Park Slope.
There you go. Mr. Alexander, I have known you for a long time. Tell us who you are.
Yes, so I've been practicing real estate for 13 years, do residential and commercial sales in Manhattan and Brooklyn, and I work with my lovely wife, Erin, and we are at the Carson Alexander team on Instagram.
Awesome. You're actually happily married and work together. Go figure.
Yeah, so far. So good.
Far.
Yeah.
I'm Eric Barron. I have been attached to the real estate industry since the mid-90s, which makes me the old person here. I've done consulting, coaching, and training for tens of thousands of real estate professionals. I love sessions like this because getting better every single day is why we're here. So I really appreciate you taking the time to level up your business. So let's get into it. Just to give people even a little bit color as well, we're going to probably spend the first half of this session giving you a lot of foundational information of what it means. So you're actually prepared to handle objections properly. And then we're going to do some role plays. And we have about 4 or 5 objections where actually we do some rapid fire on, so you could have some very specific takeaways of how Carson and Ashlie handle very specific situations. So first thing I want to ask is, and I actually did a video on this past Monday, or one of these Mondays, is it a question or an objection, right? Because we're so quick as salespeople to potentially get defensive, which we know is the wrong knee-jerk reaction. So how do you decipher whether it's a question, whether it's an objection, whether you're staying curious and asking an additional question before you even answer? How do you handle that at the initial ask? And we'll start, whoever wants to jump in, small group today.
Oh, Ashlie, I was just really hoping that you were going to go.
I know.
Okay.
I
All
know.
Right. Let's
go.
Let's get on with it. I would say that I would treat things as questions at the outset all the time, as opposed to objections. I think that's just a safer way to begin the process. I have definitely been guilty of giving too long of an answer, and treating the question like it's an objection, and adding all this other stuff to the conversation that was never needed to be there in the first place. If there's one thing that I could definitely improve on in my interactions with clients, it's saying less and being more succinct. And I think that really serves you in both cases.
I couldn't agree
Ashlie?
more. I think I think going into, sometimes we know we're about to tackle a phone call that's going to be a difficult, objection heavy conversation. Sometimes they come out of left field. I think either way, it's a conversation. Like if you view it going into it, of this is going to be a stressful, difficult, tense conversation that you are going to have to convince someone of something that they don't want to do, then you're already going at it from the wrong place. Because then your buyers, your sellers will be able to sense, smell, get the feeling that you are forcing something else on them. So I think that's really where, if you come at it from everything is just a conversation, your goal is to listen, your goal is to just be the voice of reason versus the objection handler, you're going to succeed.
So interesting. It's like what you bring into that conversation. Are you already working yourself up, right, in preparation and coming at it from a defensive posture, right, or from
I think
scarcity?
we all rehearse conversations. I mean,
Right.
like when in the morning or just throughout the day, I'm like, I'm going to say this, and they're going to say that, And it's like I'm setting myself up to have my ego drive the conversation, which is a huge mistake. Then I will take everything personally, and then I will not be able to focus on the customer and what their concerns are, and then I'm in a bad spot.
So good. How do we put aside the ego, right? It's not about winning. I know we've talked about this before, Ashlie. You said, just be human. And I'm like, what does that mean? Right? Just be human, have a conversation.
And listen. And I think it's a common thing for, like, I know there's a lot of like previous former life actors, or maybe still still practicing actors in the real estate industry. And like, that's so much of a thing of listening. Yes, you know what they're going to say. And sometimes we go into those phone calls knowing what they're going to say. They might have already prepped of like, hey, I don't want to use a broker. Hey, is your commission flexible? So if you've already if you are not prepping yourself to listen to what they have to say so that you can have a human level conversation of just figuring out their motivations, if you're not coming at it from like, and then I used this phrase before, but like karate chop everything that they say and like ninja slice, then like you're not really being human. You're not really listening. You're not really responding honestly. You have a canned response and you are ready to just knock everything down, and it may not even be completely applicable if you're not wholeheartedly, fully 100% listening to what your client is saying.
And it's so funny because I have a word here that says practice. And frankly, if you're practicing so much right before, that means you're not practicing enough every day, right? These rebuttals, these questions should come out of you naturally. Right? We hear about these scripts, we everything we do every day is scripts, right? To get my child to do their homework, it's a script. So if you're just literally role playing, practicing on a regular basis, this will be a lot more natural so you can have a conversation. So I think that's one of the concerns I've always had is like, why are you scrambling right now? Don't you do this even for 5 minutes every day? I mean, you only get so many objections. They're the same ones repackaged over and over and over again. You're rarely surprised. And if you are surprised, then you're not prepared. So I think practice allows you to be human, to have a natural conversation versus getting defensive. So that's awesome. Let's talk about mindset. And I'm talking here a little bit about getting defensive, coming from scarcity versus abundance. Also, we talked a little bit prior to this about being consistent in how you approach things, right? And, what is the formula that works for you? I know you held up a beautiful drawing in one of our pre-conversations, which hopefully you have ready.
Oh, yeah.
That iceberg is everything. We're building towards the iceberg, but there needs to be consistency in your approach. So, when we talk about mindset, we talk about being prepared. I'm going to throw out 4 or 5 words for you so you guys can run with this and however you want. So mindset, consistency, your value, right? Really knowing your value. And then how to portray that value, right? We use the word a lot in some of this prepping about storytelling, about authenticity, about specificity. So take it and run with it. And we're going to start with Ashlie.
Yes. Awesome. I would say probably one of the biggest learning moments in my career was really the abundance versus scarcity, especially when I was starting out, and every single deal is your biggest deal when you're in the first few years of being in the industry. And even as you continue on into your career, when you do get into higher price points, different clients with different net worths, everything feels pressing. But if you go into it with that, like, oh my God, I know that I'm going to make X amount of dollars off of this deal, and if this doesn't work, then holy cannoli, my life is over, then that's something that you have to just like put aside. Like, it might be your biggest deal. Doesn't matter. It's just a deal. It's going back to like, they're human, you're human, they're just people. And it really doesn't matter if they have $100 million in the bank or 200,000 in the bank. It's really just, you have to go into every single conversation with just, this is just another conversation. You have to fake the calmness if you must. But if you're thinking about like, this is your only deal at this time, or this is only one of 2 deals that you have going on before you go into the conversation. I've talked to a lot of agents about like, oh my God, this is my biggest deal and I think it's falling apart. I was like, well, you have to stop thinking about the fact that this is your biggest deal. It's just, when people ask me how I'm doing, I often steal it from my father, but he says, just another day in Wonderland. And it is. This phone call is just another phone call. It's just another day in your life, and you have to go about it that way versus putting more pressure, more stress on an already stressful job. So whatever you have to do, meditate, go for a walk, do some push-ups, squat it out before you take that call, then do it. And even if it means that the client calls and you're not like emotionally ready to do it, take 5 minutes, like focus on your breath and then take the call. Because if you go into it not in the right moment, not in the right mindset, you're gonna screw it up. So you might always put your best foot forward in that sense, and like never focus on like, holy crap, this is my biggest deal. This is the most important phone conversation of my life, because then you're gonna F it up.
Carson, can you talk a little bit more about value storytelling? And I'm waiting for the iceberg to make its appearance on today's show. So.
Well, I mean, we're teasing it, so I would say in terms of knowing your value, I think it also goes to you can't be all things to all people. Not every person you talk to is a lead, and not every person you talk to is the right lead for you. There are personality types that I really gel with and mesh with, and there are other types that I have a really hard time with. And I think that's true of everyone. And if I heard at a training, if you don't like your clients, you have a lead generation problem. And that was very early in my career. And I kind of realized like, oh, like when I have a big enough business, then I can make choices about what my client avatar is, who I want to be in relationship with, and then run my business accordingly. I think storytelling is a great way to handle probably every objection. The longer you're in the business, the more stories you're going to have. If you take 5 minutes to sort of prep and sort of craft a story, beginning, middle, end, with a moral at the end of it, you can have a story that's 4 sentences long. And if you don't have stories, take them from a senior agent in your office and say, hey, my friend said, can I tell you a quick story? Blah, blah, blah. That relaxes people because we all were told stories to fall asleep at night when we were children. And so when we hear that, we're like, even if your prospect is upset, you say, "Can I tell you a quick story?" They go, "Okay, where's this going?" Like they're kind of open to it. And
well,
then
storytelling also allows, right? It's like you could tell them, and if you're telling them, you're kind of selling them. So already our buyers, sellers, and renters are on guard, right? Because you're selling them. But if you're telling them a story, you're showing them, right?
Yeah.
It makes it more real, right? You're saying, for example, and like you said, a story could be 5 minutes. It could be 4 sentences with a beginning, middle, and an end that has, a punchline to it. They go, "Oh, I understand now. That makes sense. That's me. This is not just happening to me. This is pretty commonplace." So you've made it real. You've made it tangible, right? It's no different than, we've talked about a lot too. I have a buyer for your building, or I have a buyer for your unit. Well, you could say that, or you could say, "Hey, I have this amazing couple moving from Park Slope, who are having their 3rd child, who are dying in a 1-bedroom. And it's my job before they have this 3rd, right? Bring it to life." And they're like, "Oh, this," once again, real or not, hopefully it's real. It just legitimizes everything, and you're not selling them.
Yeah, people lower their guard for sure. And I'll show this graphic. Actually, I got on Fiverr and I hired out for this graphic. But if you don't have 3D glasses, you're not going to get it. So
I don't know if we can even see it. Can we
this
see
is
it?
This is an iceberg. This was taught to me by Michael Himes. And this S stands for stance. Below the stance is the area of concern. Behind the area of concern is their motivation. If you attack someone's stance, just going at their stance, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you can uncover what's behind their stance, their area of concern, what's behind their area of concern, it's their motivation. And if you speak to their motivation, you can be much more efficient and cut through things much easier.
I think that's amazing. And I think it's the difference of saying, like, let me give you a suggestion. Let me as my mother in Alabama says, let me tell you something. It's giving that exact same information through a narrative. And it's it's the subtle sales versus the let me slap you around with what I want you to do. And I think that's really one of the most powerful things. And as someone who hasn't been selling real estate for decades, that's something that stealing those nuggets, attending things like this, classes, anything that you can then steal those narratives to where you're not lying. You don't have to say, "I had a client." You can say, "On my team, we had this situation." You make it natural. You pick up those nuggets to where then you're able to, even if you've only ever done 4 deals, 5 deals, 20 deals, but you haven't had this situation pop up, you take that nugget, you take that story, and that's how you lead the client to the water and get them to drink. Although we can't force them to drink.
Okay, we can talk about that after, because
yeah, we'll talk about that later.
What I have to say about forcing someone to drink. It's so interesting. It's particularly for the more experienced agent, right? The power broker that's been doing this forever, that sold hundreds of millions of dollars. It's let me tell you, right? It's that ego. And that sometimes works. Most of the time it doesn't, right? It just causes additional conflict. And it's interesting framing the which we're going to get into more specifics now, framing the rebuttal is so powerful about, are you creating conflict? Are you creating additional unnecessary conflict? So important. And you said about motivations, and I've always said this to people, you should know, it's not a one size fits all rebuttal, right? You said there are many personality styles earlier, Carson. We know this. Different situations, people have different levels of risk tolerance. You need to size up who you're speaking to If you don't know in your first meeting or two with your client, whether it's on the buy or sell side, what motivates them and what they fear, you lose. Period. You lose, because you got to feed those motivations, and you do so in certain types of rebuttals, and you got to calm those fears in certain types of rebuttals. So you have to check those two boxes, right? I love that graphic. I love that. What was the top of the graphic again?
Stance. Just like, so contract negotiation, right? Buyer says, I want this in the contract. And it's like very, rubs the seller the wrong way. It's like, well, if we understand what the buyer's area of concern is around that clause in the contract, then we can craft something that fits both sides. It protects your area of concern, it protects our area of concern. Let's sign it, let's move on. But if we just say, no, we're striking that, you aren't going to get very far.
That's awesome. Anything regarding storytelling that we want to touch on right now? And
I would say just read What Great Salespeople Do. It's called, that's the book. It's What Great Salespeople Do. It's the Art of Storytelling, and it's in sales, in regards to sales. It's a great quick read, super helpful in framing the idea. It makes sense. The idea makes sense to all of us, I think, on some level. But this book takes it a step further in terms of crafting a story if you don't feel like you have, some in your arsenal.
What do both of you do day in and day out to stay week in and week out, month in and month out, to stay on top of your game? Because, when we talk about role play and practice, agents are like, what? And meanwhile, you have Steph Curry still shooting 500 foul shots a day, right? And he's at the top of his game. Athletes, they're constantly working on the foundational items. Someone's asking about, give an example of a story with this situation. You know what? We will, because we're about to handle very specific objections. So I'm assuming there'll be some stories that come out of it. So great question. And we will get probably more than one story to share with you. What are you guys doing, though, to stay fresh, to stay on top of your game?
I attend class.
Yeah.
Triplement offers really great classes. And I think anyone from leadership would say I'm in most classes at least once a week. And it doesn't matter if, I'm the only more senior agent in there. I find that there is so much value, even just from hearing what people are experiencing on their first few jobs, first few contracts, first few objection handling moments. I think revisiting all of those things, it's very, I am, in a former life, I was an actor. So even if you have been doing a show for 500 shows and you are celebrating your, 3 years in the exact same show, you don't just take it for granted that all of the lines, you don't have to think about it. If you take a week off and go on vacation, that it's just there, that it's just in your bones. It is something that you still have to. I'm not reading scripts every day. I don't actually find scripts, for me personally, to be incredibly helpful, but the bones of it, yes. We use LP Mama for our first phone calls. I will say my first phone calls are shaped like LP Mama, where we're talking about motivation and their location and their, all of the very basic things. That same character arc is there, but at the same time, it's all I have completely rebranded it for myself. And you have to make it your own. And I think that's where, I think within the industry, we always have those conversations with hey, I've been in the industry for 30 years. Let me tell you how it's done. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're fresh. It doesn't necessarily mean that they even do it on a daily basis anymore. So that's where you have to make sure that you are practicing your lines, you are doing whatever you need to do. Because I think even in my career specifically, I will always still work with buyers. I think that it's actually incredibly important to work buyers, to work at different price points, to not just be the agent that only does one thing and that's it. Because then let's just say if you happen to help out a friend or a family member or a really great referral that's not within that one genre that you do, you are rusty as hell. So you have to, it's just always flexing those muscles. Like if you are just that one person that goes to the gym and only works biceps, your legs are weak.
Yeah, but you got some awesome biceps.
Yeah, when you're on Zoom, you know that you can hide your chicken legs.
Carson, what are you doing?
I think for me it comes back to like mental diet. You know, what is my mental diet? What's my spiritual diet? In terms of like keeping my ego at bay and dealing with clients and having good conversations and trying to work and as I think is as agents and probably in a lot of businesses that are similar to ours, which there are many, we're coaches. We are coaches to help move people through a transition. It's very challenging for a variety of reasons, and we've done it before. That's how I see my role. So I think that it's like I have to put my oxygen mask on first. And I think that's, and I would say too, like at a certain point, like you've practiced the scripts, and I think, yeah, staying sharp is really good, but also like see what else is out there. Like what other content is there, or what other professionals are there that you can watch and sort of take little nuggets from. Great real estate agents that I meet during deals. We all have had a deal where the other agent is just like a dream to work with. Stay in touch with them. What do they do? What are they running into? How do they practice their business? You know, what's your lender seeing? What's you know, get a different view, get in a different lane and see what's coming up for them. And I would also say too, like a lot of us have so much going on as independent contractors. And in terms of like, what are you going to do to stay on top of your game? And I used to believe like a day that I don't practice is the day that my competition gets ahead. And this sort of like very binary, black and white, you know, Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, you know, style of doing sales. And that's just punitive for me and does not make me feel good. So I don't know if it's a COVID life crisis or what, but I'm not interested in the grind thing. So I think that's kind of how I attack staying fresh.
Okay.
Love the comments from Mr. Seawood and Mr. Boyle. Keep them coming.
Let's hop into some role play.
Yes.
And Ashlie just went black.
I don't know what happened.
Was that intentional? Okay.
No, I was trying to find the comments. Okay.
I was like, let's do some.
Let's do some role play.
Role play. Boom.
Boom.
Let's start on the sell side.
Yes.
I mean, there's a million common objections. There's objections specific to this market. So we'll handle a couple of different ones. Why you, right? Why you? There's 8,000, there's 25,000 other licenses in New York City. Why should I list with you? Who wants to jump on that? Now, once again, that's a question. Here we go again. Is that a question or an objection? That's kind of a both.
I'd say fantastic. Tell me something. How will you know when you're sitting across from the right agent?
It's good.
Because I want to know what's important to them.
That's a good one.
You know, what do they look? It works the best if you're actually sitting across from them. But like, what is, and also these are great questions. Like prequel questions are: how do you know when you're sitting across from the right agent? What's a time when you had a great sales experience? What's a time when you had a horrible experience? What happened? How does somebody win with you? How does somebody lose with you? You know? So
hold on, let's frame that in one specific thing. This is understanding very early on in the process, right? Because once again, this is not, this objections and rebuttals doesn't start at like what you're saying, doesn't start at the objection stage. It starts in the first meet, right? It starts with your mindset and what you bring to the conversation, but it also starts, what you're saying is in the information gathering stage early on. So you understand what they're bringing to this relationship, right? People bring their baggage from previous relationships, just like dating.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of the questions you just asked are, what are your expectations of the process,
Mm-hmm.
of me, of the process, whatever, of sales in general?
What's your understanding of how property is sold? You know, that's kind of a very direct question. I feel like sometimes to a certain person it'll sound sort of pejorative, but I think that it's good to gather an understanding of what they think it takes to sell a property, because it's almost like we're living in the age of, you know, real estate reality TV. I don't know if anyone on this call has experience with that, but people see TV shows and they assume something, or they heard from their neighbor and they assume something, or you know, it's like CSI, you know, the CSI effect on juries. You know, it's like similar. So you have to figure out, like, what is their understanding of how this process is supposed to go, and what your role is. I know people who think that seller agents don't do anything.
So you asked a question. So you were staying curious at the beginning, and you asked a question, right? You asked a question of something in the effect of, how will you know when that right
How will you know
agent
when you're sitting across from the right agent?
And my response is going to be, Carson, when I meet, you know, I'm meeting 3 or 4 people, you just know. It's like dating. You just know who. It's like seeing the surgeon. You go get 3 or 4 opinions, and you just know. A compare and contrast. So I need someone that's going to really represent my best interest, really fight to get the best possible price, really fight, because I really have a certain number in mind that I need. I'll just know. Let's assume they're vague. I'll just know, Carson, right? I'm meeting 3 or 4 people, and I'm looking for someone that, you know, is going to really negotiate on my behalf. Yeah,
well, that's awesome, because I'm actually a master certified negotiation expert with the Real Estate Board of New York. So are you beginning to see that I am the perfect person for this job? And is there any reason why we can't move forward right now?
At one point right there, once again, these role plays can go in just in fairness to both of you and to even everybody listening.
They'll go in crazy directions, but I'll say, look, you're a high driver. I'm going to hard close you. I'm going to hard close you multiple times, because that's your style. I'm just going to know. Next question, right? How good, how fast, how much, right? So I'll go into all those things. Feature benefit, old school, Glengarry, Glen Ross, let's close it. And I'll try and close you 6 times before I leave.
But so at what point, so we can kind of connect the storytelling aspect of, let's just stay there for 1 second. And what happens when I go, you know what, Carson, everybody says they're a negotiation expert. Like, give me a break. Is this where you potentially have, hey, you know what, let me tell you a story.
Yeah. So let me tell you a quick story. Early days of COVID, Bed-Stuy, March, early days of COVID. Deals in contract over asking price. Deal dies, like many deals did this time. Spooky. And my sellers were moving to Atlanta. They had to get out. I showed the property. We relisted the property. I raised the price during COVID. I raised the listing price. I showed it, and I got asking price for them with another buyer within 3 weeks during COVID. So I went to bat for them. I knew their value. I knew the value of the house, and I was happy to raise the price in a very scary time in the market and withstand some crazy lowball investor offers, and get my clients to Atlanta safely. They still refer me business to this day.
Right, and that's obviously the short version of that story, right? Because I'm sure if someone wanted more, tell me more. How did you do that? Right? And that question would be like, yeah, how did you do that? How did you? Yeah. And then I'm sure there's unpacking the back and forth. The investors that come in and said, hey, it's COVID, the world stopped. You better take, 1.3 versus the 1.7. So
I had somebody who was like, put up a fence separating the yards, put in a washer dryer, and take $200,000 below your asking price. And I said, great, I will put in a fence and a washer dryer if you pay $50,000 above our asking price. And they were like, that's kind of a ridiculous counter. And I said, well, it's a ridiculous offer. What am I supposed to say?
And by the way, this is, people, we open kind of Pandora's box here about storytelling.
Yeah.
It's not just the content of the story, it's how you deliver it.
Yeah.
Right. We always say it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So, if you say you're an expert in negotiation, there's a level of confidence that you need to exude in telling this story.
Yeah. Yeah, but if I have someone who's like, I want a negotiator, that tells me something about their personality type and what they want in an agent. So there are going to be multiple attempts at closing somebody.
So can we just reinforce what you just said, because we're not getting into a whole personality style, video here.
We're already 35 minutes in.
So this is important. I mean, certain personality styles ask certain types of questions and or have certain types of objections.
Yep.
Right? Where your light bulb goes off and said, okay, is this a bottom line type of person? Your story is going to be boom, boom, boom. If someone is much more loquacious and emotional and scared, you're going to have, here's how we're going to work together story, right?
Yeah.
So
let's talk about
know
the journey.
Eric Barron, which I'm sure you do if you're watching this, you're going to pitch him differently than anybody else.
But you would know what you're dealing with Eric Barron from the moment that he answers the phone. And I think that's like, usually like once we're 5 minutes into a listing pitch, all that's happened is they have confirmed the personality type that they are. Again, not to like totally dive into this, but then I think that's also where you have to begin to mirror. I'm also a big, like, when it comes to speaking, especially when you're in the same room with someone, going through like the mirroring exercise of like, if you're on a listing pitch and you can tell that they're like more of a cautious personality, they are not Eric Barron, then that's where you're shifting the language of talking about the journey and like, I am here for you. You can still incorporate like whatever your brand is. Like, I am a data-driven agent that I wholeheartedly believe in pricing for traction, and explaining how all of that works, but talking about then like, I'm going to be on this journey with you to help you find the right person to continue your legacy in your home, and like all of those things, because that's what matters to them, even though technically none of that really matters to me necessarily. Like, I like being on the journey with them, but like, if I were being pitched, I would want to be pitched more like Eric Barron. But you have to pivot to then essentially insert the phrases that you need to be able to appeal to the other types of personalities, to where you're not just like, I'm data driven, I'm going to close you, because then they begin to actually close up and not respond.
So Ashlie, you're sitting in my brownstone in the middle of Bed-Stuy, Fort Greene, Park Slope. Why you? I mean, I don't know that much about Tripleman. You say you've launched this Brooklyn team. Why am I working with you versus a much more, what I guess, an established agent in the area?
Absolutely. I think the big thing is that I am the human that you want to go on this journey with. I am not only data driven, and I am looking at how to price this home with consumer facing sites to be able to get the most traction, the most humans through this home, but I'm here to help you find the right buyer, because you care about this home. It's very clear that you love your home and you want to find the right person to do that. And I'm that person to be here with you every step of the way. And those are usually the buyers that are like wringing their hands, and like you can tell that they're like, they want to take you on a full tour versus just like, sit down, talk to me about the numbers.
So I'm going to weave like almost a secondary objection into this, right? As we all shift into different neighborhoods, different price points, right? Where even if you're experienced, you're not necessarily established. Yeah, that sounds great, and you seem lovely, and you seem really smart. I love the data aspect of it, Ashlie. I just, it doesn't seem like you've done a lot of business here, and that concerns me, right? And you hear that a lot, right? You haven't done a lot of work in my building. You haven't done a lot of work in my neighborhood. So that's a pretty common objection. So I'll start with Ashlie, we go back to Carson. Like, anytime you're breaking into something, price point, location, building, that's an objection. So I think I need to, I've seen the guy or the gal from Corcoran that's, has 3 listings on my block. It's probably the safer bet, isn't it, Ashlie?
I totally understand where you're coming from. That said, I think knowing that this deal, this transaction, this relationship, this matters to me. This is not just another deal on the block. Being able to prove to your building, to your neighborhood, that I am someone that is worth taking that step of faith with is incredibly important to me. And I think in terms of looking at some of the recent sales that I've done, that's where I also typically get even the best traction, the best results. That's how I'm able to get 17% over ask. Not a lot of agents can actually say that they do that. And that's something that if you would allow for me to take that step with you, I promise you that it would be the best experience that I could possibly offer.
It's funny, before we get to Carson, just like I love, and once again, this is a technique in general. I think it's important that you have a bunch of these facts, like specific facts in your toolbox that you could drop into your scripts, right? So what I heard was 17% above ask, right? That stood out to me. And I have listening problems, and that stood out to me. So that's the kind of thing, whoa, 17%, tell me more, right? You want to be able to drop little nuggets into your rebuttals that forces them to go, oh, tell me more. So you don't need to give full explanations, right? You want to keep the conversation. And now they're giving you permission, right, to talk more and tell me more. So I love that. Whether that was intentional or not, specific nuggets weaved into your rebuttals are very important. What, Carson, same concept, not in my building, not in my neighborhood. Which one of you is shoveling papers? We need to keep.
Not me. I would say, look, if I understand the other agent has three listings on your block, my question is, when they get a buyer lead for this block, whose house are they going to show first? Whose house are they most motivated to close? How do they choose? Are they going to pick yours?
And then just be quiet, right? Yeah. That's the whole thing. Because most agents will ask a question like that and post something and then ruin it.
Yeah,
right?
Like I almost just did.
Right, you almost just did. That's why I stopped you.
Yeah, and but I would say, look, here's another one. Here, can I tell you a quick story?
Yes. Sure.
Okay, thanks. Sure. I was pitching in a building in downtown Brooklyn that I've never sold in before. I had a great meeting with the seller, and she ended up giving the listing to the agent who actually repped the building when it was a new development. And she said, I've chosen to go with an agent who has a deep understanding of getting properties sold in this building. She still owns that apartment today. And I'm meeting with her after her lease is coming due in the summer to get that property listed and sold. Having a deep sales record in a particular building or a block does not mean that it is a guaranteed sale, a guaranteed transaction. It's the individual actions that your agent takes, and it's not their past record.
Well, right. You can also take the question approach, completely understand. I see that they've sold, 11 things here, whatever it may be. How do you think, this deep understanding, right, which is, is going to benefit you? Mm-hmm. And obviously asking that in a way that is not going to cause friction, right? Mm-hmm. But you want to be accusatory. So the delivery of it needs to be a little bit gentle. Mm-hmm. I don't want to lose fact of what happened before. Like you said something so profound, and wait for them to reply. It may be an uncomfortable silence.
Yeah.
It may be. And or they may just be thinking about it based upon their personality style. Mm-hmm. So I always say in this objection and rebuttal conversation, right, reinforcing it's a conversation, let it breathe. Mm-hmm. Right? Because so many of us are salespeople, like, oh, just sign the listing. No, not just sign the listing, right? Or like, you shouldn't be in there more than a half hour. All these.
Oh man, yeah.
No, but it's true. It's like, let it breathe, and if you're not forcing it, then it's more authentic, then it's more conversational, then it's more human, and then they will sign. It is true though, right? Because what you said before could be a little confrontational, right? We never want to badmouth the competition. I know you're two people that will always take the high road. There's some agents that won't, but what you did in a way, gently, but a little controversial, was, oh my God, they have 3 listings in the building that are, 2 of them are very similar. I mean, who's the favorite child? Right? Yeah. No, but then you see, I've always been using analogies, right? If you knew they were one of 3 kids, like, okay, did mom really love all 3 of you equally? You're laughing.
Yeah.
That was laughter. You're going to get a virus and be like, oh shit, you're right. The baby was the favorite. Okay, so who's the baby out of those 3 apartments? Oh shit, you're right. So if you could somehow even take it out of real estate, use real life examples where they go, oh, I totally get it. You're right. I was the oldest. She didn't care about it.
Oh no.
But it's true though, and then you could just post things. Hey, and if you're concerned about potentially offending or it sounds like I don't want to use the word being condescending to the other side. You could pull, we talked about it the other day, the dagger sandwich. Hey, I'm sure that agent's a great agent, and I'm sure they mean well. I'm sure they mean well. That being said, you don't love all 3 apartments equally. It's just impossible, right? Human nature. So you can always have that give and take, to not so they don't feel that you're bad mouthing the other side. Okay, buy side, which is really not accurate today, but because of inventory being so tight. But hey, there's more and more buyers out in the universe that say, I'm going to go direct and get a better deal. I don't need a buyer's agent today, right? People think they're smarter. People think they know more, particularly if they bought in the past. Particularly if they bought in the past, actually, they've had a bad experience. They're like, what am I doing here? I have the worst agent. And we've even joked, it's almost better off doing it by yourself than getting a bad agent.
Sure.
And we've also talked about, let's be honest, can you do this yourself? The answer is yes, you can. You legally can, and you physically can. Should you is the real question. So, hey, you seem great. I'm going to go direct today. A lot of these listing agents play games. I think I can get a better deal going direct.
What is a better deal for you?
I just think I'll have more negotiation power when that agent may think they don't have to split their commission.
I understand. So look, what I do is not rocket science. It is not brain surgery. It is very possible for people to do their own deals. You're going to be going toe to toe with someone whose full-time job is getting their client the better deal than your deal. So if you're prepared for that to also be your full-time job during that process, and you have a rock star attorney, maybe you can.
Ashlie, no, go ahead. What are you going to say? Please finish that thought.
I was just going to say, do you know who your attorney is going to be?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Okay. And do you have like a home inspector?
No, I don't.
Or I'm sure you have a lender.
Yeah, I'll probably go to my bank and just get already pre-approved there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think one of the other awesome benefits of working with an agent like me is that I'll come to the table with people who I've worked with before, who my clients have loved. And I also bring the experience with me of having done this over 100 times. So can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Let's work together. Let's find you a place. If you see that I'm falling short, I'm not getting the deal done for you, or you think I'm leaving money on the table, or I'm not providing value to you, tell me. We'll part ways friends. I'll give you all my contacts, and you can go do it yourself. But let's give this a shot, because I think in the end, you're going to see that this is going to be the best outcome for you.
Right. And as soon as you started talking, first thing that came into my mouth, abundance versus scarcity. How more sincere and authentic can you be? You want to do this deal on your own? I'll even take you to it, right? Whatever it is, right? You're just giving, and giving that person a clear opportunity to say, hey, you know what? How can I say no to that?
Mm.
Oh, that was good. Once again, and how you deliver that in your own way.
Yeah.
Right? Can I make his segue, right? These are, once we get into script practice, his segue was, can I make a suggestion?
That is one of the best tips I was ever taught, is asking that question, because no one will say no. And when you're in a conversation with someone, people talk about, you got to close them. You got to close them. What about tiny closes, microscopic closes, or getting them to say yes? Can I make a suggestion? Sure. Can I tell you a story? Yes. Those are tiny closes.
What do you want to add to that in your flavor, Ashlie, about not needing an agent, going direct, getting a better deal? How do you approach that?
I think the big thing for me is it's in the same way that I pitch a seller, talking about the 17% over ask. I'm here to help. I'm the boots on the ground navigator for you, because you don't know where things are going in contract for. You see that it was only on the market for 11 days. I'm here to navigate what the best price is for you. We are in this best and final, best and highest land right now. And if all offers are blind and due at a certain time, I'm here to help you navigate that data to make sure that you actually are getting the best deal. If you're just shooting for the moon, you could be paying $20,000, $50,000, $80,000 above the ask, but is that actually the best deal for you? And that's my job, is to help you navigate that.
And once again, for sake of time, and thank you for doing that, Ashlie could probably talk about that for 5 more minutes, right?
Sure.
Because when I hear stuff like that, and you and I have talked about it, Ashlie, like what the best deal this month is not the best deal next month, because the market is so fluid. And because, like you said, I've done this over 100 times. Ashley's going to say something like, because I see 200 apartments a month and I see in real time supply and demand, I know how the other side thinks. I know how much room there really is. And oftentimes I've also coached people to because to me, the perfect example is the courtroom. Can you go represent yourself in the courtroom? 1,000%. Here's why you want me in there. Because I know how that judge thinks. And I know how the other side likes to negotiate deals. Do they start high and go low? Do they start low and go high? Right? There's all different strategies. And you know the psyche of the other side. You can't possibly know it when that person has, like you said earlier, a fiduciary responsibility to the other side. You want to, there's how do you drip, little nuggets of, that's a way of creating fear. Like, that person has a complete fiduciary responsibility to the other side. Sure, you could have co-broke and dual agency and things like that, but we already know how challenging that could be. Mm-hmm. Really interesting. I can't possibly buy now. Market's crazy. Let's use something super real time. Market's crazy, uncertainty, interest rates, war, oil, bidding wars, best and finals. There's no inventory anywhere. Should I just wait? Or I just need to see more, right? It's almost in conjunction with another one that you mentioned, Carson. I just need to see more before moving forward, if there is more.
Yeah, I would say, this market is insane. And with all that's going on, thousands of people are buying every month. So let me ask you, Eric, with all that's going on, why would somebody still go ahead and buy right now? What do you think?
It's a question I ask myself every day. Because that's a question I ask myself every day, because everyone says, and once again, you don't know if they watch Fox or they watch CNN. You don't know if they watch CNBC, right? You just don't know. Mm-hmm. Like you said, what they're feeding their brain. You talked about earlier, what are you feeding your brain? Mm-hmm. You don't know what they're feeding their brain, but you need to know. and that's why, and that's how you cater your rebuttals accordingly. I don't know. I'm thinking recession.
When?
We have all these interest rate, we're X amount of 200 basis points this year, sometime this year. Who knows? Sometime this year.
Are you going to flip this property?
No, not flipping.
How long do you foresee yourself living in this property?
I would say at least, I would say 5 years.
5 years. Okay.
Probably not super long term, 3 to 5.
So I think 5 years from now, you're going to be thrilled that you went ahead and took this step and bought this property, because the appreciation that you will realize, regardless of what happens in the short term, will make you very happy in the long term. Does that make sense?
It's funny. I'm going to reinforce this again to people listening. I am not just listening to what you say. I'm listening to how you say it. Because if I'm frantic and I'm concerned, right, you're steady. You're steady as shit.
I would also say too, like, I've had this conversation a lot. Maybe don't buy right now. Do you want to wait 2 years?
For some people, it's not the best time.
Yeah, it is not the right time for a lot of people. But if you have it, people do not buy because of the market. People buy because of what's happening in their life. And people are bombarded with data and messaging about interest rates and prices, and everyone has access to a lot of data. But it's important to zoom back out, take a deep breath, and be like, why did we start this journey in the first place? It was because you wanted your own set of keys. You wanted to stop paying the landlord. You wanted to have a second bedroom for the baby that's on the way. You wanted to build wealth. Go back to the iceberg, right? The stance is the market's crazy, but behind that is like, I'm concerned and I'm hearing a lot of noise. It's funny. I'll tell you a quick story. There's a lot of investors who were like, hey, when the market takes a crash, give me a call. I got a lot of dry powder. That saying, I got a lot of dry powder I'm sitting on so I can spend some cash. And COVID happened. I called those people and they said, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to wait. And then a year and a half later, they said, let's get some COVID deals. I said, you're too late. They're gone.
Yeah.
Nobody can time the market.
What's your take on that, Ashlie, before I
I always ask, what are you waiting for? If this is not the right time, what market condition is the right time? Let them talk. And then I also give the narrative. I put out my offer for the home that I bought November of 2020. Literally everyone in my family thought that I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, that I had lost my damn mind. And I was like, this is it. It is the right timing for me. And it is also the timing where it works out for me financially in this moment. I could wait, but I feel like this is my shot. That said, like, if you're looking at it from, you're waiting for the right time, something is always going to be not the right time. Either interest rates are too high or the market's too crazy. There's a direct correlation between A plus B is going to equal not the right time. And A and B will always exist. What A and B are could be different in that exact moment. But it's really figuring out, like, if you're waiting for interest rates to go down, historically speaking, we don't know that. Like, what we do know is that they're most likely supposed to go up even more. We have been in a best and highest market in Brooklyn. This is not the first time. This is not unprecedented. It is not uncharted territory that we've never seen a best and final. And I have had buyers come at me like that way of like, this is unprecedented. I mean, this couldn't have happened before. And it's like, this has been just the Brooklyn market for as long as I've been an agent. And I do around $60 million a year, and probably at least half of those deals are best and final. And so knowing how to navigate those things, and just knowing that that is the market, allowing for economics to play out. That's one of my favorite nuggets. Best and final is allowing for economics to play out. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're overpaying, just means that it's economics working in its finest way. There is
Time-
supply, there is demand, there is time. I mean, go ahead, Carson.
Yeah, I was gonna say time in the market is more important than timing the market. That's a saying that my
That's
wife
good.
taught
Good.
me.
That is a good one.
You know, and that's true. And that's why I asked if you're going to flip the property. If you're not flipping, then
I think the big takeaway, and we could, I think we could probably end on this. We started 2 minutes late, so we'll end 2 minutes late. I think the big takeaway, and it's almost a whole new session, is there is once again when I say let it breathe earlier, right? Let it breathe. It's asking great questions, right? And that's what your therapist does. You want the answer. They ask you 9 more questions. You're like, I'm paying you $400 an hour. Can I just get the freaking answer, please? Or can you write me a script? No, but it's true. They want you, right, to come up. It's cathartic because if you come up with the answer, if you'll believe it's sticky, right? If I tell you it's not sticky, it's like the parent. You know, oh, I thought of that. Really? You thought of that? I told that to you, 6 months ago. And it's the same thing with your buyer or seller, right? You're asking questions, and a lot of you said, one of the questions I would ask is, I hear you. If you didn't buy today, what are your plans? Oh, I could stay in my rent stabilized for the next 3 years. Oh, okay. That's a barrier that a little bit.
Yeah,
bigger.
these might not be objections. They might be conditions. And you can't overrule or change a condition.
Well, you were planning, we talked about putting down 30, 40%. What would you do with that $500,000 over the next 9 months? Right? Versus, you also said, another great thing is, okay, great. If there's a recession, Ashlie, we're looking at, I'm making this up, $3 million. What do you think this $3 million apartment is going to be worth in the fall? Oh God, 2.7? Okay. Let's say you're right. It's worth 2.7, which we don't know. Go back to what Carson said. Okay, Ashlie, what do you think this apartment is going to be worth in 5 years? Good point. Right? So you just have to kind of unpack it a little bit and make sense of some of their irrational behavior, or let them make sense. Right? We're always so quick to answer for them. Let it breathe, stay curious. And what both of you did naturally was not run right into your rebuttal. It was asking questions and thoughtful questions to get a better understanding of how they think. Final thought. I believe in the chat, we're going to put some handles. So if you ever want to reach out to me, I'll include my IG, my LinkedIn. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm a huge LinkedIn user. I think it's very underutilized in real estate. Ashlie and Carson, I think we're going to put your handles in the chat as well. So please, 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 if there's anything we didn't answer, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Final thought. If they remember nothing else about today, Ashlie, what should they remember?
Not everything is an objection. I think that's really the biggest. Go in it with a level head. Not every question is an objection. And just be a damn human. That's it.
Iceberg.
And remind us. Come on, you spend so much time putting that together.
That iceberg Sam.
What is that? What is this? What's Sam again?
Stance, area of concern, motivation. Do not attack the stance. Find out the area of concern and or motivation and address this. And then you're going to get through the iceberg.
And someone said here in the chat, Lucas, I love that. He's tattooing your comment, time in the market, not timing the market. That's really good stuff. First and foremost, I appreciate the two of you for taking the time. You guys are so smart and so caring and such great humans. I love spending time with you. I really appreciate everybody that's joined us today, that's taken an hour and 10 minutes out of their day to level up their business. Look forward to doing this a lot more regularly. Stay dry, everyone, and happy Thursday. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Take care.
Bye, y'all.